You're listening to the Lux Life Discovered podcast, where we talk with people who are living a lifestyle that reflects their passion, because we believe everyone should be living their best life, their Lux Life. The show is hosted by Rick Steiner with Steiner Event Group, a premier national event planning company, and co-hosted by Shannon Richmond, the Vice President of the Panama City Beach Chamber of Commerce. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notifications of future episodes. The show is produced by 30A Media and is broadcast on your favorite podcast outlets, as well as YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TVs, and other major brand smart TVs.
Hello, I'm Rick Steiner. Welcome to Lux Life Discovered. My guest today is Todd Anthony Tyler, and we're doing our quarterly men's style segment. So, Todd, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Rick. I'm always excited here to talk to you about fashion.
Oh, definitely, man. Everything going well?
Yes, absolutely. As you know, part of what I do is a kind of an entrepreneur-spirited sort of element. So lots of little projects going on, lots of things going on that I'm excited about, and lots of opportunities to suit up, which I'm excited.
Well, good deal. And speaking of suiting up, I mean, you look sharp today in your pink suit. A lot of people can't pull that off. You always do it, and you do the bright color suits too. And if I tried to do that, I think I've said this before on the podcast, it would be a fail. You do it, and it just looks like class. And so good job with that.
Thank you very much, Rick. I appreciate it. I mean, yes, it's not necessarily for everyone. We've talked about that quite a bit on our men's style section here, that not every trend is for everyone.
Right.
But definitely I like to push the boundaries a little bit, and I like to play with fashion a bit. So lucky for me, it works.
Yeah, true. All right. So you want to talk about your suit to start off with then?
Part of the reason why I'm wearing the pink suit today is not only to get pretty in pink, but is to demonstrate that one of the top 5 style trends for 25-26 fall winter is pink. Pink has been around a little bit, of course, each of the seasons. I don't think you ever have seen pink totally go away for guys. The pink polo seems to always be around, right, kind of thing. But for fall winter, it's a little bit less of a fuchsia pink, more of a powder pink that's been popular in the runways. And you're going to see that across the board on suits, sweaters, some people just pairing it up with a pair of pants. So you'll see quite a bit of pink, which is not necessarily for everyone, but it is a style trend here for this fall winter coming up.
Okay, great. And I know you've got the plaid shirt with that, and it looks sharp. So one thing that I think is a lot of people like to know, you've got the plaid shirt, selecting the tie to go with it. I know there's not like a certain rule exactly, but like how can you make the different fabric choices and textures to make it work?
Yeah, that's a good question. And just before we came on, when I was in my room putting ties together, I was thinking, I'm going to make a post on just how much I enjoy putting the ties together, because for me, that's a lot of fun. One thing I would say, though, is I have a lot of ties. That might not be everyone's situation. I seriously probably have about 400 ties.
Wow.
So that means I have a lot to play with, is my only point there. A little bit different than what might be in everyone's closet. I think probably the average tie count's more like 5 to maybe 10. But yes, one of the best parts about suiting up anyway for me is pairing the tie. I think the tie is what really brings it all together, what really sets the whole thing off, and just elevates a little bit the whole look at the end. Like you said, currently with fashion in general, there's a lot of rules that have gone out the window. It's really free for all. A big thing for 25-26 now is that individual expression. So that can come in the way of your tie, of course. But some things that I look for is just mixing certain pattern. Like here, I have a check, but then I went with a stripe on the tie. You could have went with a solid, which is a safer direction to go with the tie. The safest, if you're not going to play with it a bit and take some time to really look at it and look at the fabrics and the colors and the textures and the patterns, then if you have a patterned shirt, then you have a solid tie. That's an easy, simple way to go. if you want to get a little bit more into it, into the styling, then you start to look at the pattern of your tie, the pattern of your shirt, and then elements of colors of your tie with elements of colors in your shirt. Of course, you also consider your overall suit that you're wearing, what the tone, what the color of the suit is, bright tone, darker tone. Those are also factors. But the main thing I would say is bringing out color elements that are similar in the shirt. Not really matchy. You don't want to do that too much. You see sometimes super matching, especially super matching tie with a pocket square. That's been gone a long time ago. I wouldn't say it's a faux pas, but definitely if you want to hang out a bit with the style crowd, somebody's going to call you out in doing that.
Right. Okay. All right. And then you were talking about the 25, 26 trends. They're a little lighter than normal, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's in part why I also have the white jacket out. The white jacket has been it's just been a whole trend of just the white jacket in itself. You typically want to, or you typically do see that, say, spring, summer, definitely a lighter color. There's been that sort of rule at after Labor Day, there's no white kind of thing. Right. That's been broken now with a lot of the rules, and you're seeing that a trend for this fall winter still is the white jacket. So here I paired it with a flowered shirt, and flowered patterns were very big this spring, summer. I think depending where you live, you can still pull off the flower pattern shirt for a while, probably well into October, maybe even November if you're in warm climates. So I have it paired here. That is a little bit of a last season trend, but absolutely the white jacket, you're going to see that right through the entire fall winter season. A lot of those Christmas parties, you're going to see some people wearing white jackets.
I was going to say, like, especially South Florida, even the Gulf Coast of Florida, it's warmer till really Christmas. So light fabrics will still be okay to wear at that point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's even another thing I was just thinking before we got together here, is that a lot of times, Paris, New York, Milan, all more northern type climates dictating a lot of what the style trend is. But where you are in Florida, you might not always be pulling out the sweater, for example. So there's a different climate, environmental situation that dictates a little bit about what you can wear or what you may wear. And I think you're sort of seeing that a little bit in these lighter colors for this fall winter season.
Okay, good deal. So what are some other trends to look for that may have surprised you for the
I think a big one, which I'm mixed on, I might try it since I like to give it a try and pull it off, but faux furs have become a big men's trend for the fall winter. Yeah, you've seen that a lot on the runways, even feathery fur, faux fur jackets and bombers. There was a lot of some of the collaring, of course, faux fur, but you will see a lot of faux fur in this fall winter season. I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out. It was definitely on the runways. It's definitely a suggestion of what the trends are coming up. I haven't explored that yet that much myself, to be honest, but it is definitely one of the strong, say, top 5 trends for this fall winter season.
Well, when you do try it, I know it's going to look sharp and you can pull it off. So that's going to be interesting to see how you bring that into bring that to your style.
Thanks, Rick. I will definitely post something up for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of things that I've seen pop up recently on social media is the old money look and the new money look. And when I look at that, I think some of it, you kind of laugh and think it's just a great post, but then there are a lot of it that's really accurate. It kind of hits what they're trying to portray. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think part of the old money look came from the whole quiet luxury movement as well, right. Which you saw sort of in 2020, 21 coming in. I think that was just a response that people were getting tired of all the big logos and the loud nature of things. Maybe it's even a response to the period of time that people were living through as well. Right. But definitely now you're seeing a little bit of a move away from that quiet luxury. And just as a note, I kind of like the quiet luxury. I kind of like the little, as much as I like to suit up like this, there's parts of the quiet luxury with the, the less logos and a little bit more nostalgic sort of look, which is actually still a trend here for 25, 26. Nostalgia is still there. But the old money look in particular, I think you see people pull that off quite well. And I'm going to say, in part, that may be, especially with the younger generation, is because you can thrift those kind of things even better. That's not really something we often talk about with men's style, of course, as in, using thrifting as part of your acquiring stuff for your closet. But I think it is an element, and not to just say with younger generation, but in particular with younger generation, sort of getting out there with their careers, developing, growing. Maybe they don't have the financial resources yet to do so. So that old money look is something that you can acquire without necessarily costing you quite a bit to have a quite clean look.
Right, you'd have to go broke to achieve that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that could be why sometimes people don't carry that out as much as they would like to, because they think they can't afford it or it's not within their means. And so they kind of just go a different direction, and that really they don't have to do that.
Yeah, I think so. I see that a lot with anybody, a lot of people that I sort of help out with their style, or if somebody's contacted me to help them coordinate something, or just to give them some guidance. A lot of people think, oh well, I don't have the resources, the financial means to buy those $3,000 suits, or buy all the super branded clothing and be so current. But that's not always necessarily the case of what you need to do. There's a certain percentage of the population that can afford that, and of course they do that. But that doesn't mean that you can't dress better or dress the way you wish. There's definitely lots of ways, thrifting being one of them, of course, that you can put together really nice current looks and not go bankrupt in the process.
True. All right. So if somebody wanted to achieve like the old money look at a reasonable budget, what would be your main advice for them?
You're still looking for, I think, quality products. I'm not going to name a bunch of brands necessarily with a situation, as we're not really endorsing anyone in particular, but there are some brands that have been around for a very long time, and brands that not necessarily even have to, like, especially for the old money look, you're not necessarily looking at some of the super top fashion brands, even though some of those brands did emulate a little bit of that look in some of their collections, but just some of the classic brands that have been along for a very long time, that have quality fabrics, quality cuts. Those items last. And so if you're trying to put that together on a bit of a budget, those are brands that you want to search for, look for. You can find them on a lot of sites, like Poshmark, I think is one of them. Grail, I think is called another one. I could follow up with more if people are interested in that aspect, but there's places that you don't even have to necessarily go to the thrift store to locate that kind of look. And in that case, again, you're looking for those specific brands, somewhat hold their value, but more specifically because of how they're made, the materials, the construction, that the product, the piece is still very good.
And you brought out a good point. They last, and they're not going to be, because a lot of the old money look is like a kind of it's a classic look that doesn't go out of style. And so that's a good key factor that people should think about in getting some, and your whole wardrobe shouldn't be filled with that, but for your main pieces, that would be a good steady that's going to stay with you for a while. It's a good investment and something you can wear, at different times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to a degree, though, there's, again, across the spectrum of all of, North America, globally, there's a lot of different style ideas and how people like to dress. But if you're just talking about, in general, a solid, call it men's, say towards a masculine direction, closet, that you're going to have a selection of clothes. The old money trend is not a bad one to sort of get a few pieces on and have a few looks. And I think it's also what you sort of alluded to there. That's something relatively quick that you can put together, get in the car and go out and grab something at the store where you're still kind of put together. You didn't have to like all suit up and dress up and coordinate your tie and everything, but you still look good and put together. And in my opinion, you still in every day generates a certain response from people interacting with you, how you're dressed, what impression they get of you. So I think it's not a bad idea to take a little bit of a look at that old money style.
Right. And whether it's a job interview or a social event, I think a lot of people fall short sometime, not a lot, several fall short when because that first impression stays with people. And if they perceive that you're not able to keep up with them or to be able to even know the trend, like how you should dress in certain situations, it can be a negative factor.
Yeah, 100%. I see that every day in all the different things that I do. Besides enjoying men's style and dressing up and considering trends and having a fairly broad closet to pull from, certainly in my everyday with different types of projects that I work on, either through photography or social media or an entrepreneurial project. I have to consider how I dress because that first impression when I walk in the room or I meet a client, how they're going to receive me sort of sets the tone for the entire experience, which I have found out definitely on many occasions. So yeah, there's some cases where suiting up is right. Some cases where maybe it really is too much. Not to take away from who you are. I do also dress based on, this is me. Like you mentioned, luckily for me, I can pull this off. So I'm going to wear this. Maybe it's not right for everyone, but definitely considering how you're dressed and people's first impression of you is a big one.
And also when you dress confidently, you feel confident, and that reflects in how you carry yourself and everything.
That's right. And that's, again, using my own self-reference. I feel good in a suit. I feel great getting out of the car and walking into my meeting in a suit. That might not be everyone's experience, but definitely thinking ahead of how you're presenting yourself by the first moment someone sees you by way of how you're dressed, and you could even say groomed yourself. I think that makes a big impact, and definitely, got like crossroads in your life to a degree. Like it could have went this way, but the impression the person had, it went this way. It is something to really think about.
Yeah. And also just putting the time and effort into that thought makes a huge difference,
Yes, I think so. I mean, I saw recently a bit of a clip with an interview with Brad Pitt and where he's at right now with his style and everything. He's a bit of a men's style icon, of course. And then he was just talking about like in the 90s where the grunge period was kind of great because he just had to pick up whatever was on the floor and put it on. So I think definitely now we're a little bit away from that. And like you said, taking that moment to consider what you're wearing, how you put it together. If you want to go as far as I enjoy doing, textures, tones, colors, definitely that can make a bigger impression when you're walking into the room and meeting anyone, really, whether it's friends or a first time impression.
All right. And something that you brought up a minute ago, the number of ties you have. So your closet, and I say with an S, plural, has to be more than your wife's. So is that a problem?
That's an interesting question.
You didn't expect that question, did you?
Yeah, no, but it's a good one because it was a recent conversation. Just that's okay. Yes, I admit my closet is an entire spare bedroom. So I just put it out there right now. And I have all my shirts color coordinated, and I have all my ties, and I have all my suits laid out in a certain way, and my shoes in a certain way. That's a little bit me just, I don't know, being Virgo or just my character to have things nice and organized, but also time consideration, because if you're going in and you want to put something together, then you're rifling through drawers looking for stuff and everything. it starts to take away a little bit from the pleasure of putting your look together. So I do keep it together that way, taking up an entire room, like I mentioned, which is 10 times what my wife has. And at times she does wish I maybe donated a few of my suits and moved on. But she's very supportive. She enjoys the fact that I dress up, though. I would say that
Oh yeah.
in part it's how she met me, and she likes that I'm a guy that is not too grungy, and I like to groom myself and take care of myself and dress a little bit pleasant. So that part's not a negative at all. But she does
That's
have a
good.
few comments how my clothes are starting to spill out of that room, and I have another rack here and another rack there. Maybe I should pare it down a bit.
But she doesn't care. As long as you look good, that's what matters. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things for her. She knows I love it anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and you brought up a good point too about the grooming part, because you can look good, have the right colors, the right fabrics, the right clothing on. Grooming is an important aspect that many miss. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. Perhaps with the younger generation of guys that I interact with, again, in any sort of style conferencing, they seem to be a little bit more on that, perhaps. It could be a generational thing where it's not seen as less manly to wash your face and put a skin cream on or something like that, so yeah, I think you see that a little bit less in the younger generation, but definitely across the board, I would not say guys are really strong on grooming. I think that could grow and change, but definitely probably one of the first bits of advice I always give people when they're wanting me to help them out is we do take a look at their grooming routine. Hairstyle doesn't necessarily even have to be current or trending, but what works best for their face, and then from there, like taking care of your skin. And then for me, as you probably know, Rick, I'm pretty big on health and fitness. I think
Right.
that's part of your grooming routine, taking care of yourself. So what you eat, what you drink, that all impacts how you look, and definitely part of, say, your grooming protocol.
Yeah. And with men, and I'm not just men, but men, there's so many that fail to take care of themselves. They're taking care of everybody else, taking care of all the projects, whatever they have going on with work, with family. But you have to take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of everyone else. And there are a lot of people that feel guilty taking that time for that.
Absolutely. I also write a little column for a men's magazine. I just recently wrote about that, about even being a father. Just not feeling guilty that you're not always there, or that you're taking a moment to take care of yourself. Because you're absolutely right, Rick. It's like, if you're not healthy, if you're breaking down mentally and physically, and not able to take that moment to take care of yourself, then you can't be there for others as well. It's sort of like that idea of loving yourself first. If you don't love yourself, without being narcissistic, of course, but have a love
Right.
for yourself, then how are you loving others? And that's the same thing I think about taking care of yourself. If you may be in a traditional environment where you're the sole provider of the family, it is very important that you take care of yourself, and not have guilt about going for that run, or eating a certain way. I think men often lose that, with that goal of achieving and producing and bring the breadwinner, perhaps, or just being super overachiever. They miss that sleeping well is important, eating well is important, a little bit of motion, physical activity is important, because in the long run, that's going to catch up with you.
Right. And if it does catch up with you, no matter how you dress, how you try to present yourself, that's going to come through more than anything. And usually results in a display of lack of confidence in what you're doing.
True, because you're kind of breaking down again, either whether it's
Yeah.
physical or mental. And so you start to lack confidence. And that just shows through, exactly like you said, no matter what you're wearing, that's going to show through. And then it brings us right back to that first impressions idea. there you are putting out that first impression that's not maybe necessarily who you are or the impression you want to give.
Right. Okay, so we've got just a few minutes left. What's your biggest advice tip for this segment?
Well, I guess looking at the trends again, lighter colors are not a problem coming into the fall winter season because classically we go into the darker colors. I guess my biggest thing though, mostly, which I see time and time again, is that everyone just falls to black. I think we probably spoke about this before, but especially this time of year, you just see everyone just suddenly going maybe a dark navy color perhaps, but it just tends to be black. And I think that's a big mistake for men to make, just pouring on to everything, black sweater, a black jacket with black pants with black shoes. I think just wearing an entire black wardrobe is not necessarily the way to go, and something to avoid. And I think even if we go back to taking care of yourself, I think the black color is not a very positive color for you, even overall. And not to say you shouldn't have elements in your wardrobe, of course, but when you get very somber, especially in the northern climates, I find you get a very somber sort of shorter days, less sunlight, everyone's wearing black. I just don't see that as a plus. I think
it kind of
moving
gives
away
you a
from
black mindset too. Yeah.
Yeah, it affects your mindset. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think they do this? Think it's because black, they feel black is safer?
Yes, I think it's a
safe choice. Yeah.
It's a default color. I think I also commented this before, but especially in my full-on fashion photography days when we were having shoots and some models would bring additional accessories, everybody always brought black. Always default to black. And that just doesn't actually even photograph that well. So I think it's just an easy, safe approach or way, and less thinking. Like we talked about earlier, it takes a moment to think about the tie, the shirt, the colors, the tones. People, understandably don't always have time for that. And so they just grab something black and they think it's easy.
That's true. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to put your information up for people to contact you. And you do individual counseling for people, consulting, right?
Yes, absolutely. Anyone wants to reach out, I consult all the time on how people might want to make changes or adjustments or just have a chat about fashion and what direction they're going in. Absolutely. You can reach out and DM me. I do enjoy doing that.
All right. And then make sure you follow Todd on Instagram and social media at Todd Anthony Tyler or A Perfect Chemical, because he has some great advice to share, some great tips along the way, and just find out more about who this young man is and what he brings to the table. So Todd, always thank you for doing this segment with us. It's always great to visit with you.
It's my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. I spend the whole time super excited getting ready for it.
Well, good. And we appreciate that. So that concludes our episode of Lux Life Discovered, and we will see you soon.
Check out Lux Life Discovered on Facebook and Instagram and on 30a.tv. See you next time on Lux Life Discovered.